that once they start running into that, they're going to have issues before we're going to see the issues.
So does that mean they have alarms and stuff that'll be attached to those? Is that what that means?
Um,
Or not, how sophisticated is it, the system? Or is it just manual by eye? That's questions I have. Because we get a lot of junk from these car washes. You know, I don't care where they are. There's stuff that's on these cars. Got anything from antifreeze to oils to whatnot when you clean them up? Car? How did,
Would you please come forward, sir, and then you could address the council so we all can hear. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Darwin Lindahl, the architect of the project. I was just going to introduce, today we brought a representative for the car wash equipment manufacturer, and he can address those questions, so if that's fine, so, okay.
And as you come forward here to do so, sir, my question would be for Mr. Rosvit. Councilor Bearber asked if there was any information about inspections and alarms and those kind of things. So my question is, do the other car washes in town, they have to comply with the state law with respect to that? Do you get weekly reports from these other car washes around the city that controls what Councilor Bearber was asking?
We do not. I assume they have something as a small quantity generator, may it be, or something with the MPCA. We don't receive anything, or we don't monitor that.
Okay, thank you. Sir, would you please come forward, state your name for the record, the company that you represent, and any information you can disseminate to us while we're discussing what we're going to do when we render this decision. Please state your name for the
Point of order,
record.
please.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to know
Counselor-
from the attorney
Counselor
if this is
Johnson.
considered new information or not, because this gentleman has not been before us in a previous
Okay,
hearing.
Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. Counselor, I think this is permissible because these were questions that were asked at the last hearing, and the follow-up information is what we're receiving now.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Paul Starkey. I'm with Reliable Plus. Been in the car wash world since 1990. To answer your question, Councilmember, how a waste stream works in a car wash is, as the Public Works Director said, there's a sand trap first. And after that, there's a flammable waste trap, which is a steel tank. So before it hits the sanitary sewer, any oils, antifreeze, anything like that that comes off the road that's on a vehicle is trapped in that. And you were exactly right. Either you're, with the NPCA and the EPA, you have to file an annual report, whether you're a conditionally exempt small quantity generator, a small quantity generator, or a large quantity generator. And that's how that's monitored, from how that's hauled away by a licensed hauler. As far as alarms, unless you have a reclaim system, I don't know of any car washes that have an alarm. But as the Public Works Director said, the actual bay will flood and you won't be able to use it. And we want to make sure we trap everything that comes out of a car into that sanitary system so it doesn't run in a storm sewer. We don't want any of that stuff hitting the storm, because it's going to end up in a river, so.
ours is gonna end up in a sanitary system, not a storm system.
Right, but if it ran over,
Yeah, okay.
you know what I mean, it would end up in a storm drain, so.
Are those reports available to us so that you send to the MPC on a yearly basis?
That I could not answer. I'm sure they would be a public record, but I don't know how you would access
Because I'd be
them.
satisfied if that were to happen.
Say again,
I
sir.
would be satisfied if that were to happen.
Yeah, and
records to us.
I would divert to somebody else on how to get those.
Okay, thank
But,
you.
but yeah, it would be law that they have to, any business would have to provide those if they have that flammable waste trap.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for this gentleman? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, council, anything else? Okay, I'm going to ask the city attorney, as a part of the hearing on October the 4th, there was some additional information that we asked for. And so I talked to our city administrator about it, and I took the opportunity, and I don't know if other councilors did, just to go down there and just take a perusal and take a look at the system, and then talk to the staff at Archer Boards to determine what it is, why they want it there, and those kind of things. So can I disseminate the information that I gleaned from that?
You can, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know if any other counselor went down, but I did to educate myself even more so after hearing the planning and zoning, what they've done. And I don't know if planning and zoning went down there and spoke to the staff to investigate that, or just looked at the plans itself and the variance as it was proposed and as it was testified to at the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. But I did go down and I talked to the staff there, Mr. Schott, and asked just to take a look from the map that was presented during the hearing, help me understand why you want this car wash here, why you need to have it here, and what's the goal and objective. So he took me around, and the same information that was disseminated and investigated by planning and zoning and that we talked about at the hearing showed the, what the feasibility is of putting a car wash somewhere else on that property, and the ability to access the proper drainage system and the result of that. And I think when Iron Trail Motors, I don't know if it was 6, 7 years ago, I don't know if it was a sewer line or some line down there along on their property was freezing. They had to dig all of it up. They had to put some styrofoam down there and prevent that from freezing. So they do have a drain system right there on the property where they're proposing to put that car wash would attach to that drain. And in addition to that, as we talked about, what's feasible, what's not for them, based upon the 17-foot variance that they're asking, which is more beyond the 10-foot variance that they originally got when they built the building, and that there is a garage that's attached to the Chevy dealership. In that garage, you drive a car in there, and the service person comes out and, takes the information and then puts the car off to the side for whatever appointment they have. And in that garage stall, there is a drain, a big drain system, and that drain goes directly into the system and accommodates from there. They do have the option of putting a car wash there, not the one that's being proposed here, but something similar. Maybe it's the same car wash moving forward, and they would need a variance in which to do that, and they could put that there. The issue there is that the neighbors' concerns are the fact that it's a blower system would create undue noise issues for the neighborhood, and that particular plan the blower would actually be facing 17th Street if they put it there, and that would make it even worse for the neighbors as well. So to educate myself, I found out from my perspective, I looked at what would be reasonable based on the information that our attorney provided, what's reasonable and what balance do we have with respect to, what could be done. And in my discussion, there are other options that could help alleviate some of the noise if we were to approve the variance, or that may help other things, methods that could be done to alleviate any additional noise with respect to that for the neighbors. That wasn't the recommendation that came out of the planning and zoning. That didn't come out of that. But I'm sure that based upon what the testimony by Iron Trail Motors or Virginia Building LLC, that they would try to accommodate and reduce the noise as much as possible, as they indicated at that last hearing. So that's the information that I gleaned from that, and I'm going to base my decision based on what was investigated by the Planning and Zoning Commission, the information that was gleaned from our staff, what Mr. Jim Rosvit had brought forth to us, what the requirements are there car washes in the area, and to determine whether or not this is a feasible place, a reasonable place, a place where they can access. Are there other options available? So those are the things that I looked at. That's the information I gleaned and after talking to Mr. Roswell and others about that. So I'm ready. I think I've educated myself in a way where I'll be able to render a decision based upon the totality of the circumstances from my perspective. Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just reviewing, it's in our packet for later on, but I think it's applicable, and is it statute or ordinance 10.37? It's an ordinance, and it discusses, hold on.
Noise violations.
Public protection, crimes and offenses, noise violations. Let me get to my shots here. I guess it would be,
Step 437 A, B, C, and D.
there's a whole bunch of them, but, okay, so I guess, I don't know how to do this, my thing won't scroll. There's one item, it says, all unnecessary and annoying vibrations. There's another one that says, let me go, I apologize, I should have had this up. Sorry, Mayor. Sorry, maybe I need to go back. You have those in front of you, Brian? I think it's noise violations. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I apologize. If someone wants to, you want someone else to talk, and I'll find what I need to, and then circle back?
While researching, and just to give you, I brought this up, put on the agenda based upon information about vehicle noise and those kind of things generally throughout the community. So as you look at that, we'll go to any of the other council that may have some information that they want to disseminate, questions they may want to ask related to the October 4th hearing. Are there any other comments, questions that any other councilor might have with respect to this? All right, seeing none, we'll as you're looking through the noise ordinance there, Councilor Paulson, there's all kinds of types of noise, and I did talk to the chief of police or assistant chief of police about this, all different kinds of noise that comes to the community. The complaint that was lodged with a primary concern from a citizen was the fact that these vehicles with loud mufflers are going up and down the neighborhoods on a regular basis. They live in that area, and he was concerned that it's at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, and it's creating an issue for them, and he was looking for maybe some signage to put around the area with respect to noise. And so when we talked about the noise issue, it comes in a variety of areas from industrial to commercial to residential. And so is it undue noise that will create an issue for people at an unreasonable hour as well? That's a consideration in some of these noise ordinances throughout the area. So that's the purpose of bringing this forward for later on the regular committee of the whole agenda. Councilor Paulson.
Okay, thank you, and sorry for the length of time here. So then it goes on to talk about prohibited noises. Under item A, it would be page 35. Any distinctly and loudly audible noises that unreasonably annoys, disturbs, injures, or endangers the comfort, repose, health, peace, safety, or welfare of any person, or precludes his or her enjoyment of property, or affects his or her property value. So that's one of them that I just have a question in terms of the noise level, which is some of the concerns that when the Planning and Zoning Committee or Commission met, that was some of the objections as well as the water. And then, let's see, this is page 50. It says noise impact statements. The council may require any person applying for a change in zoning classification or a permit or license for any structure, operation, process, installation, altercation, or project that may be considered a potential noise source to submit a noise impact statement on a form prescribed by the council. The council shall evaluate each statement and take its evaluation into account in approving or disapproving the license or permit applied for or the zoning changes requested. So my question is, is there a noise issue that was part of the original complaint? Is there a noise issue with this car wash? And I don't know if anyone can address that, but I know that the car wash on 2nd Avenue and 11th Street South, I believe, had to install some sort of a barrier, although that residential home it's right in the backyard. But I'd like to ask to have that addressed. I don't know who would be the appropriate person to address that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. When the application for the car wash came to Planning and Zoning met and conducted their due diligence and determined whether or not this would be an option to build. The recommendation was based upon the information that they investigated that it would be a denial, but there was nothing in the minutes that addressed that particular part of the request for the car wash and the concerns that were brought forth. Now, it may have been a concern that was brought forth by the residents who live across the street, but there's no noise form, there's no noise variance that was offered to the city as a result of this.
And I think I did hear discussion, I think, Mr. Byrd, when you came up, you had mentioned that some of the objections were the noise and also the water, having residential water backups. So I'd like to just understand, if this is going to create a noise issue, then are we going to have to go back into this ordinance and do some enforcement if there is a noise issue? So I'd like to understand, I don't know if you can address the decibel level or whatever that looks like. But I also went by the property, and there is wetlands to the north. It's very hard to build anywhere else on the property. I wholeheartedly agree with that. But I'm just trying to, again, come to meet in the middle somehow, some way, where everybody can be amicable. If there's a noise issue, that could be addressed. And we do have an ordinance on the books that states that people have a right to enjoy their property, a reasonable right to enjoy their property in a peaceful manner. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, would you answer, please? Thank you.
Darwin Lindahl. We did, excuse me, we did talk about the noise issue on several meetings. I think it was at the Planning Commission as well as the first city council meeting. There is a noise issue right there, and a lot of it has to do with just the noise that goes from Menards back and forth, and as well as, because I stood out there personally and took a decibel reader at the street, and it was in the 60 to 65 decibel levels. One of the things that we've proposed on the car wash is that the doors would remain closed at all times from the entire wash and dry cycle. So a lot of these car washes that you see, they've got the doors open while the blowers are going and the car's exiting the car wash. This one here, the car will remain stationary. The car wash equipment will roll over the vehicle. It'll go through the wash, rinse, and blow cycle. And the entire cycle, the doors, both entry and exit doors, will be closed. So there will be no, I can't say no, but it would be very minimal, if any, noticeable difference from what the noise that you constantly hear on the street. Also, we added that this car wash is only operated during the hours of operation, which are 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, and they are closed on Sundays. Where you see a lot of the noise, obviously, with Menards, as we stated in the previous information, is that Menards is open at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they don't close till 9. So basically, when most people are home during the evenings and the weekends, this car wash will not be operational.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Beyondich.
Yeah. I would like Mr. Byrd to come up and remind the council again of the deniance of the variance.
Thank you, Councilor Councilor Beyondich. Mr. Byrd, could you please come up and do you have any specific questions for Councilor Beyondich, or just like an opposite in a review?
No, I just wanted to hear again from our zoning commission and the work that they put into this and how they came up with their decision.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Byrd, welcome.
Thank you. Well, as I stated before, I believe we did our due diligence. I've been at this game for a couple of weeks. And what happens many times with variances and we hear this, I think, at just about every meeting, is people come in and they say, look what they did down the road. Look what they have. Their garage is right on the alley. Why can't mine be? And things like this. We talked about this last time. So Iron Trail comes in, and the first thing that comes up is, look what Super One did, okay? So, well, okay, they did it, we let Iron Trail do it. No, Menards wants to build something right on the edge. Menards is gonna come in and say, well, look at Iron Trail, look at Super One, and on it goes. And, we have these, the code that we follow, and yes, variances are there for a reason. And the biggest reason is hardships. Most hardships deal with people having not enough real estate. And as I stated before, they want their cake and eat it too. They want their garage on the alley so they can have their yard. They don't want to move it in. And I guess that was, I'm just speaking for myself here now. My feeling is that there's enough other options there. There's enough other room, especially to the east. And, again, all the years I've been on here, I only remember one or two decisions that have been overridden by the city council, which of course is your right. Most of them maybe get referred back and then we rediscuss, which is always seems to help. The best thing, I believe, is to come up with a compromise. And right now, I guess I don't know what that compromise would be. But be prepared with this type of variance approval that there will be more, and it'll come back to us, which that means it comes to you. So I don't know if I answered your question, Maya, but that's just, I guess, my feeling on it. So.
Yes, thank you.
And also, we try to cater to the people as much as we can. But when you have there's certain things that come into that, jobs created, like I talked about that too with the Menards, excuse me, and certain things like that you have to look at. Well, okay, we got one or two neighbors complaining. That's not the case here. You've got one or two that show up, but I spoke to the other ones that were here last time, and they're gone now. And some of the other ones are more elderly. They really can't make it up here. And I just, I like to see the little guy have something to say once in a while. And I think that's good for city, it's good for city politics, it's good for everybody. All I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. I'm gonna, just one moment, Mr. Osford. So for me, hindsight being 2020, and as we heard the variance hearing, maybe, as you suggested, it would have been wiser for us as an elected body to refer that back to you for additional investigation. Then maybe we wouldn't be here today, potentially. Maybe we would have had the compromise as you indicated and as Councilor Paulson indicated, but we didn't. We're here, and we have to render a decision with respect to that. So based upon not only my knowledge and the presentation and the evidence that was presented at the October 4th meeting and the clarification that received here prior to, we have to render a decision today with respect to that. And I agree with you 100%. The neighbors and the residents have to have a voice. There's no question about that. And so we have to take into account the totality of circumstances. The circumstances of the business, the circumstances of the residents that live across the street, the circumstances and the information and the trust and faith we put in our Planning and Zoning Commission to make those recommendations to us. We had questions about their recommendation. We chose to go to the appeal process as opposed to referring it back to you for additional investigation, which would likely have gleaned a little bit more information that may give us better understanding how we could compromise to help accommodate not only Iron Trail Motors, but also the residents that live across the street as well. But we didn't do that. So we're here today as acting as our city attorney had indicated as a judicial body to make and render a decision based upon the information that was presented today. So it was prudent. If anybody else has any information that's pertinent to the information that was presented at October 4th meeting, does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns before we move to render a decision on this matter? Councilor Paulson, and then over to Councilor Friedli. I'm sorry, if I may just hold you in abeyance for a minute. Jim Rosved had a question. Jim, before they move, could you just disseminate what information that you want to give to us?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm neither for or against this car wash, but I just wanted to make you aware. Also, we did meet with the architects, the engineers. The option that they're stating is about the only option that would work for our sewer lines, for our services. The other two sanitary services we have are not deep enough to run a service on 17th, at 17th and 12th. That would not work. We'd only have about 2 feet of cover over that sewer. And then the other one is to the west, which is just north of Menards. That also would give us about, I think it was 28 or 30 inches of cover, which would not be enough either. I just wanted to put that out there. That's why they are looking at the first location to run down 13th Ave.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Osvet. Councillor Paulson, then over to Councillor Freely.
Thank you, and maybe maybe Jim, you need to stay up, because I don't know if it's in our packet, it's Exhibit B2, and then it says manhole number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It gives 12th and 17th, 55 inches. Could you, I don't know who put that in our packet, but could we get a little explanation on what that means? Do you know
Jim,
who submitted that in our packet, Britt?
Jim?
The
What page is
post-it
that?
note, or the range paper note?
That came from the architects.
Oh, from the architects, okay.
Which came from me. My sewer guys actually measured those elevations on that to see what we had to work with. And we did the math on it, and to our opinions, we didn't feel that it would work at the, like I say, the 12th Ave or the one north of Menards.
So when we met last time, we were talking about where the drainage goes, and it was stated that it actually went to 18th Street South in that cul-de-sac. Is that not the case, or, because I know that's part of what the neighbors are concerned about, is it going to back up their lines?
No, that's actually and I might be wrong on this, but one of my sewer employees did tell me that that sewer line actually ran east to west at one time. And then they altered it when Menards came in, is my understanding, and now it runs from west to east. So that is a deep manhole at that cul-de-sac. But to get there, Menards has all their electrical, all their utilities running in that site between the cul-de-sac and 17th Street. So for us to go into, we haven't even looked at that, but for them to cut into that, I think we're really opening a can of worms there.
Okay, so what my question though is if the car wash is placed where it's suggested to be placed, where will that go?
It will go to 13th Avenue and 18th Street intersection. There's a manhole there
Heading east?
heading east, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we are going to be making some changes with 17th Street coming up in the near future. And so there are going to be some new infrastructures going there. And we'll recommend some deeper services in that.
Including that appalling intersection there at 17th Street and the one.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Larry, just if I may interrupt, that's part of our new street stuff coming up with that, what Jim is talking about.
Okay, yeah, right, yeah. That's part of your street infrastructure? Okay.
The newer stuff we just went through and annotated 15 streets, and that's one of them down the road here, but it'll be, a few years down the road yet.
Sounds good. Thank you, Councilor Baraboo. Anything else, Jim?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Freely.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, I just want to remind everybody that due to, over the last several years, having what I would describe as a sporadic contractual association with Iron Trail Motors, I've been advised by legal counsel to recuse myself from this vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Freely. And so, anybody else's light on right at this particular time? Okay, so at the last October 4th meeting, I was advised by a city attorney based on a question I asked him, based upon my as a customer affiliation with Iron Trail Motors, having one of their vehicles and getting it serviced there, that I was advised to disclose. I did receive an email from a resident that indicated that, I think that was information that he was disseminated. I didn't have to do that, but yes, I was required to disclose. I am allowed under the law to vote on this particular issue, but at that October 4th hearing, I was required, and to be completely transparent and ethical, I was required to disclose. So I hope you all understand that, so thank you. So anything else? Anybody else? Okay, we're here to make a decision, one way or the other. I think one is to either, Brian? As far as the motion goes, there's two options with the motion, and would you please disseminate what the framework of that on one or the other motions?
Correct, Mayor. So I think at this point, I think the posture where we stand is that the Planning and Zoning Committee has recommended a denial of the variance. And so there could be a motion made to accept the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Committee and deny that variance request, or a motion could be made essentially to reject the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Committee and approve the variance request. And upon each or either motion, what I would suggest to the council is that the motion be made and supported, and then as the discussion follows the motion, the factual basis supporting each of the three factors of the test should be created.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, could you just repeat the third? The first is reasonableness, the second is uniqueness.
Mayor, would you like me just to run through them real quickly?
Would you please, Brian? Thank you.
First factor is reasonableness, and what that means is that the property, they're requesting a reasonable use that wouldn't be permitted under the current code. And for this variance request, my understanding is that the code prohibits the placement near, as close to the boundary line as it is, and the variance is that it would be an area variance. Second factor is uniqueness, that there's something particular about the property not attributable to the seeker of the variance that would create a need for the variance. And finally, essential character, that is that if the variance were granted, it wouldn't substantially affect the character of the neighborhood or affect the kind of the way the neighborhood sits.
Is that clear, fair for you, Councilor
Yes.
Paulson?
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Okay. Looking for council action, a motion in some form to make a decision request at this appeal hearing. Is anyone here prepared to make a motion?
Mayor,
Councilor Bearable?
I'm going to make one. It may not be a popular motion on this, but after getting my questions answered on the sewer and the possibilities to putting a car wash in the other place because of sewer design, I'm going to make a motion that we override the Planning and Zoning Commission and allow this car wash to be put in the position that they have established through their architect. Reason being, we got all kinds of jake braking, other stuff that's around that's noisier than a car wash. That happens on 12th Avenue and Highway 53. That's noisier than any car wash that I've ever heard. And I'm the same distance away. So that's my motion. If I don't get a second, fine.
Okay, a motion by Councilor Bearable is to override the recommendation by Planning and Zoning and approve the request from Virginia Building LLC to construct a car wash as presented and meeting all the terms and conditions of the requirements of that construct. Is there a second to that motion? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I will not be supporting this. One of the biggest ones, and I appreciate the 3 points from the attorney. There's been so much information brought to us, including quite a packet presented on the 13th, which was after the last, was after the initial hearing. The size and variance, as Mr. Burt alluded to, goes back to Super One. The Super One, the initial variance for Super One was 2005. And that was to build a large building next to the road with no extra sound, no extra stuff like that. The second Super One variance came in the teens, and that was to move the building farther away from the citizens that are living on that street. So based on those two, and the diligence of the Planning and Zoning Committee, I'm not going to be supporting this. It seems like the information we keep getting should have all been presented at the very first Planning and Zoning Committee where this came up. That it keeps trickling in, there keeps being new people coming is very frustrating to me, and I think is not what the process is supposed to be. So I do think that it will change the neighborhood. I think that third point, it is going to change what that street looks like. It's going to change what that street sounds like. I find frustration that we keep comparing this project to Menards and to Super One, and that's not a very good business atmosphere. I wish that there had been some more diligence on the discussion ahead of time about what the other options were. I wish that we had talked about at the last meeting about, I believe Planning and Zoning had suggested meeting with city staff about what possible financial help could come from the city, from IRRB or from other agencies to see if there was a better place, and that really didn't happen, to my understanding. It's just been information over information over information without any discussion. So I will not be supporting this motion based on those items.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Councilor Baraboo?
Just one more discussion, to talk about reasonableness as part of it, and uniqueness. Well, there's uniqueness on that property. Can't put in sewer lines to the existing ones on 18th or 12th Avenue. That's very unique to that property because of the shallowness that they'd have to be, and they'd all be freezing up. There's no way to prevent that in the winter months. So that's a unique characteristic of that. It's reasonable now that I've got the answers to the sewer issue, that it would take the 18 gallons of water per minute, or per 3 minutes, 6 gallons per minute into the 6-inch sewer line. And with the fact that we're going to redo some work in the future on that. Plus, I'm looking at another thing that we all keep talking about, the tax base. We're losing tax base all over this community. That's a new tax base. That's another reason. Well, I'll tell you what, when you listen to that Jake breaking on 53 and 12th Avenue, I'm the same distance away, in fact, a little further than these neighbors. That I can hear all the time in the summer months. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Baraboo. I want to thank Jim Rosved, our Public Works Director, for some clarifications about the feasibility of building it someplace else other than what's being proposed, number one. And number two, it was our responsibility in answer a little to what Councilor Johnson alluded to, the fact that maybe this information, I think the term was trickled in. Well, that information comes from Planning and Zoning, from the investigation from our staff before it got to the October 4th meeting, and that information wasn't there. We, as a council body, could have referred it back for some additional investigation, asking our Planning and Zoning for some more clarification information. We didn't do that. We moved forward with the denial, which was of council vote, and then which triggered the appeal process. So that's why we're here today. And so any additional information that was disseminated today was directly as a result of the October 4th meeting. So based upon that, and based upon the testimony from Virginia Building LLC, Iron Trail Motors, that they will do they would do the due diligence, do everything they could do to accommodate to the reduction of noise in that area, which not just includes the enclosed car wash, other factors. And I would encourage them to meet with the residents and try to come to some type of a communication mechanism, whether this is approved or not. So it has been moved and supported to override the decision by Planning and Zoning to override the denial and approve the request for the car wash and the variance for Virginia Building LLC Iron Trail Motors. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please. Pam?
Baraboo?
Aye.
Lieb has to abstain. Paulson?
No.
Beyondich?
No.
Johnson?
No.
Aaron Yes. Huffy?
Yes. What's the final total? 3-2, 3-3. Motion fails. And then the planning and zoning recommendation is upheld. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. Motion fails 3-3. The appeal by Virginia Building LLC is denied, and the variance recommendation by planning and zoning is upheld. No other information to come before this meeting today. Yes, the
Mayor,
decision has been
point
made.
of order, don't we still need to vote on the recommendation of the planning and zoning? We still have to vote on that, don't we? Because they're not a voting power. Answer me that question, because we have not approved their denial of the variance.
If I may, on October 4th, the denial of the variance was denied, and then this is the appeal of that denial. Is that correct?
I don't remember us voting on that.
Please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think from a procedural standpoint, I don't think that the council as a body has ever passed a motion on this topic. And so the planning and zoning recommendation came to the council as a recommendation. It has never been formally approved by the council. At this point, the approval has been denied, but for lack of a better way of phrasing it, the denial has never been approved. So the city council has never taken an official action on this. We've held a hearing and put the official action to today.
Okay, so the action that's been moved and supported and voted upon is that failed, is that legal, binding?
At this point, the council has not approved the variance request. I suppose, as a legal matter, the council has two options. There could be a secondary motion put on the floor to deny the requested variance. There could also be a recommendation or a motion put on the floor to refer the matter back to planning and zoning to see whether there may be some modification to the request to bring it back before the council. The one thing we've got to keep in mind is that because this is a land use request, if we don't take action within 60 days of the request, failure to act has the consequence of approval of the action or of the request.
Thank you, Brian. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe when we met at the last meeting, when we voted on this, when it was denied, that was an approval of the denial. And that triggered the appeal process. So I would think that it's done.
That was my position as well.
Yeah, it's, in my opinion, you're the lawyer, but we took the action step and we accepted the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation of a denial, which triggered now what we're, I guess, in today, and that motion failed. So the standing should be from the original meeting.
That was my perspective. Would that be acceptable, Mr. Lindsay?
Mayor, that is, I stand corrected. I misrecalled the posture as we approached, and that Councilor Paulson is correct.
Okay, thank you. So no other action to come before this special meeting today. The variance was upheld, or the denial of the variance is upheld, And we stand adjourned. Thank you. It's at 9:27 a.m. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, let's take a break.
Big tax base right there. Tax base there, car wash. We're losing all kinds of tax base. Well, we could build a, like they do in the cities, build a wall for noise. That was my other thought.
I apologize. I missed.
Everybody ready? We're running a little bit late today. Matt, thank you for your patience. Okay. We'll call this committee, the whole meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, October 18th, 2022. We were scheduled to start at 9 a.m. due to a previous special council meeting regarding a variance. We are starting at 9:40 a.m. We have a full agenda today, and I'll turn this committee of the whole meeting over to our city administrator for the agenda, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is Matt Reed, SEH, the city engineer of record, regarding the updated downtown parking map.
Thank you. Welcome, Matt.
Morning.
Morning.
In your packets is the updated map that we had put together several years ago. We went through and tried to get as much of it as we can. Hopefully, it's 100% up to date. If anybody sees anything that's incorrect, by all means, it's not going to offend me if somebody says, hey, can you please change this? So we drove it all, we looked at everything again and tried to get it as up to date as possible so you guys can make some good decisions with it. So I don't know if there's anything else, Britt, that you wanted me to discuss, or just, I think the council wanted to review it a little more, and so I can, whatever you guys find, let me know.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I think we need to take a closer look at the requests and recommendations to come up with a plan moving forward. Councilor Johnson.
Britt, would it be possible to get these two maps printed on the really big printers so we can look at them here on the table instead of trying to on screens? Thank you.
I can print them for you, Britt, if you want.
Yeah, would you give us, if you could make a,
Which two maps are you referring to? This one and the street one too?
Yes, the two that are in that page 2 and page 3. I think that will just be helpful if you can look at them without microscopes. Appreciate it, thank you.
Can do.
yeah, thank you, Matt. I think we'll need some time to review. I know we all have our opinions about things, and I think I've been pretty vocal about my opinions, so I may have to temper that as I look at this map moving forward. So thank you for presenting that. Is there anything else to come before Matt today that we need to move on the agenda, Britt?
We'll be taking no action on this one. Is that what you're saying, Mayor?
I would say that right now, I think we need to review this map as presented by Matt, unless you deem it necessary to move forward. I think give us some time to digest it, unless somebody else has anything else they'd like to bring up moving forward. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. So this is more for the parking areas in town that we were discussing earlier. Do we really need all of them? Correct?
There had been mention of getting rid of permit parking, getting rid of 2-hour parking, getting rid of those kind of situations.
But just in certain areas?
It's up for the council to decide. You directed us to get you the whole downtown map, and that's what we provided.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Okay. Anybody else have anything before we move on to the next item on the agenda? Okay, anything more from Matt?
Yep, the next item is Matt, and it's regarding the proposed 2025-2027 street and infrastructure priority map.
Again, for your digestion and review and comment, certainly don't need an answer today, but Charlie and Jim Rosfit and Ellie Lemke and myself drove several streets. We did a little bit of upfront, had some upfront discussions, and the result that came from that is this map, and this is what we're looking at. So trying to look out ahead, we've several years ago, Charlie and Bill Hennis at the time and others had put together a priority list that resulted in a capital improvement plan that turned into the last 3 or 4 years of reconstruction on 3rd Avenue, Southern Drive, Pineville Court, 3rd Street, 8th Avenue, and so forth and so on. So looking out ahead now, what's next? And so that's what we were considering priorities from the standpoint of what condition is the infrastructure in, the sewer, the water, the streets themselves, traffic volumes, things like that. So this is what we came up with. This could be a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year. I would probably look at this as being another 2 or 3 phase project that would probably go from 2025 potentially out to even 29 or 30. There's a lot of roads on here, and this is going to be a lot of money. So we have not run any cost estimates, preliminary cost estimates yet. We intend to do so, but didn't want to spend the time doing it until we get a good list. Not that this list can't be changed in the future, of course, but just at least get a preliminary list and a preliminary idea of what the council might think based on what we came up with, and then we can sort of put some costs together and make it more of a capital improvement plan for the future, so.
And as we do that, Matt, I think when it gets closer to doing the 2 years out, the 2 years out, the 2 years out, that there's going to come a point in time where once we make a decision on the roads that are moving forward, would it be prudent for us to make sure we have some public input as well before we make that approval? So this is a preliminary plan. The streets have been identified. We're kind of in the embryonic stages of determining and focusing in on deciding on what streets we'd like to see done, and then have hearings opposed to that and public input. Is that what you're looking at?
Correct, yeah. Once we get that list put together, so we can get the council some costs for budgeting purposes, and to be able to start looking for outside funding like we've done on other projects. Then from there, you're correct, Mayor, that as we start breaking it down into the different phases, we would have the public hearings and get comment from the public. Now, if you would like to have at some point, when you get your list identified, if you would like to have a citywide public hearing that says, hey, come and give us some input on these streets, that would certainly be your prerogative as well. So.
Sure. Thank you very much, Matt. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a little bit of maybe input to give and maybe a question suggestion. As we move forward, I've had a couple conversations with a few, I would say, constituents and business owners. And the question is, everybody seems to really like what happened on Southern Drive, just the overlayment, that they're able to, it's, I guess that's 17th Street South, by Super One.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who just.
The skim coat?
What was it called?
Skim coat.
Skim coat. And my question is, as we move forward with the overall, whether it's a 5-year, 10-year, whatever that might look like, I'm wondering, since that project seemed to not be so very expensive, if we could look at doing some of that skim coating to tide over some of the streets that are maybe the worst affected. Maybe we could look at a cost-benefit analysis on that as we move forward in doing this, so that our constituents, our community feels like the council's actually doing something, although it costs so much money to put aside when you're digging all the, you're doing it right. So I think that's great that we're doing it right. But in order to tide things over until that point, I'm wondering if we could also include that with our discussion, Mayor, some of that overlayment or skim coat or whatever it's called. And I don't know how everyone else feels about that, but it's just feedback that I've been receiving. And I would really appreciate if we could have that conversation and just see what the expense would look like, and maybe what type of funding we could access to help us do some of that work.
I think a prime example was, and we'll go to Councilor Bearable for Street and Alley Commission Chair, from Jim Roswick and Matt, and I think Street and Alley also determined that some of those streets, and I think it was a decision that was made, that we had funding available within a budget. We recognized that 17th Street was an issue, and that back road behind the ball field there that parallels 53, that it was necessary to do something, to do a minor repair. And as part of the course of action that they do to repair streets, this skim coat was within the budget was to do that. I think, Jim, if you was that like $16,000 to do that one right down this road or between Super One, that 17th Street and Southern Drive. Was that kind of about a $16,000 skim coat?
I think it was 27,000.
Okay, there you go. So thank you. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, just for a little information, fellow councilors, when we went around and we looked at the streets and we determined what needed to be put into future budgets and stuff, we talked about some of the overlays, or what do you want to call them, skim coats. You can't do them if you don't have curbs, number one. You got to have curbs left, otherwise you don't have any place for the water to go. So we've kind of poo-pooed a little bit of these skim coats because they just don't last very long, maybe a couple, 2-3 years, but they get torn up and they aren't thick enough to last. The frost gets to them, they get damaged when it's cold and water and everything. So we've kind of stayed away from a lot of skim coating, but if we have some extra money, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't want to spend the money if I'm still around to be chair of Street and Alleys for just Band-Aids and we come back and have to tear it all up again. That's my personal opinion as chair. Now, the committee may decide different.
Matt?
Yeah, and I think, so a couple of things to that point and also to Councilor Paulson. So over the years, the last, I'd say 10 years, we have done some mill and overlay projects. So 12th Avenue was a prime example from all the way from 53 up to West Chestnut. That's all been milled and overlaid and basically resurfaced. We didn't do any infrastructure on those. The infrastructure is relatively new and those are holding up fairly well. Some of those have been there for 5 or 6 years now. So that is certainly part of the overall, let's look at that. Charlie's right in the sense that some of these just straight up overlays on some of these streets, they're so pounded and so beat up and some have been overlaid already, so there's no curb and gutter capacity left for the storm sewer, so you have to take all that into consideration. And that skim coat on 17th, I'd be willing to bet you if we didn't tear it up next year, it's gonna be in rough shape. It's gonna break up pretty fast. So can we? Yes. Or could we? Yes. I think just as long as everybody recognizes that the longevity of some of those things, it would be a Band-Aid that we would want to look at doing something further on. But I totally understand what you're saying, that if we can get some smoother roads in town, that would be, I think that would go a long way. So when you're looking at trying to figure out how to stretch the dollar, I guess, that's something that could be considered, but definitely want to consider it on a case-by-case basis to make sure that we're not just throwing money after bad things too. So anyway, a long-winded answer of we can look at anything, it's just a matter of deciding what we want to do.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson.
Just, Mayor,
Con-
can I just make one quick comment? It is
Yes, sir.
not up to me as chair or our committee, it's up to the council to make the final decision on all this. So we'll present stuff, but it's up to the council what they want to do in the end.
Sure, I think that's the purpose of this committee, to make recommendations to all of us to determine what our next steps are in the paths moving forward. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. On these street projects that are coming up, are these all going to be like the Third Avenue where everything from underneath was dug up and replaced, so any old pipes or shut-off valves or anything for water would be replaced?
Yes, if they haven't been replaced recently, they would get, recently as in probably the last 20 or 30 years even, yes. The infrastructure would get replaced as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Okay, anything else for Matt today? Anything else on the agenda that Matt needs to address, Britt?
On the next item, actually. But
Okay.
before we move on, there is something I want to talk about since Matt is here. For the 2021 street project, we had submitted a letter of request to Stauber asking for $3 million. We got the $3 million in July of this year for Third Avenue, which was already under construction. So they were a little late in getting us the money. So we contacted Shayna Glover, who was our contact person, and told her, well, thank you for the money, but we are late. You are late getting it to us, so we have already started the project. We didn't think we were going to get it because it was supposed to be money we were supposed to get in '21. Didn't get it till 2022. And her response was, could you use it someplace else? Well, of course we can. So the million-dollar question is, where are we going to use it? Our letter of intent to Stauber said we were going to use it in a low to moderate income area that was hit hard by steam conversion requirements. So the question that they are now asking me from the federal government is, what is your project? Where are you using the money? And I don't have an answer for that, but we had preliminarily discussed that maybe using it out on 14th Avenue and 20th Street or something in 2023. Now that we have this list from 2025, 27, 28, 29, whatever it may be, do we want to look at something in there? I mean, what do we want to do with this money? But I don't have a lot of time, maybe a couple weeks. So by next committee of the whole, we might need to have an answer. Where do we want to use this $3 million?
Okay, thank you. I would like to see the recommendations come from our Public Works Director, our Engineer of Record, and the Committee of Street and Alley to come up with some recommendation and some adjustments based upon that. Councilor Johnson.
Mayor. when you said low moderate income, which is a majority of the city, and steam conversion, to me that meant alleys, like taking a good hard look at our alleys in this area and trying to figure out how do we make those better. I think that is where people are going to feel the use on their vehicles. They're going to see it when plowing. There's a 5-inch lift in concrete at the end of my alley that I'm concerned about if the plow goes in the other direction this year. Usually it goes east to west, but if it goes west to east, there's a significant lift. So I guess that would be something I'd like to look at, is what does that look like for our alleys? And is that something that that people will see and feel right away, and what does that look like? I don't know. There's so many patches just in my alley alone, which is not unique anywhere, with different types of, whether it's steel plates or concrete or dirt, just plain old regular dirt. So that's what I'd like to see us look at and bring that back to Streets and Alley, and maybe that's a discussion we can have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Okay, anything else for Matt before we move? Councilor Bearable?
Yeah. Steve, one of the issues with alleys and stuff is we have a set policy we'd have to change right off the bat where we can use some of this money. So there's a 75% assessment process for alleys to the homeowner. We'd have to go through this, and I don't think we have enough time to change all this before you have to turn in your information. So we're going to have to look at actual streets right now where it isn't a 75% assessment. We can look at alleys down the road. But I think this grant is for major streets. It's not for, it's for traffic, streets with traffic, correct, Brett?
Just that infrastructure and street reconstruction, it did
Okay.
say.
So we could look at alleys. I'm against alleys, period. Right now, we need our streets fixed before we need alleys fixed. You know, there's certain ones, but nobody wants to put the 75% in for assessments. That's been the issue. You can petition anytime you want for an alley, have it done, but then the residents have to pay 75%.
I think we just want to take a look at it to see what's feasible, what's not, and the recommendation coming forward from staff to determine what's the best use of this $3 million and the additional $900,000 we got or whatever. So I would rely on that recommendation, or we would rely on a recommendation from our staff, our engineer of record, and the committee moving forward to how we can best use that money. So one of the things about this money is that it's not attached to one project. We have some flexibility there. So I think we should use that flexibility, and that gets our best bang for our buck based upon the traffic numbers. So.
Rich, when do you need this exactly by?
I'm holding her off as long as I can. She keeps asking me for our letter of intent, and I haven't given it to her yet.
So is the next committee of the whole too late?
No, I think that would be perfect.
We need to set up a meeting, Matt, then,
Yes.
of our committee, you and Jim, prior to the next, in 2 weeks, somewhere in this next 2 weeks.
Fine. Matt?
Yeah, I can give you at least a preliminary thought. Britt, is there any reason, I'm trying to remember is there any reason we couldn't go to 14th, 20th, and Southern Drive?
The only hesitation is our letter specifically stated we were doing an LMI area that was steam conversion, that was affected by steam conversion.
Yeah, okay.
That's my only hesitation, was that was specifically stated in the letter, why we chose Third Avenue.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
Hey, thank you, Britt. Thank you. We'll set that, set the meeting and let.
I just wanted to bring that to your attention because it was an interesting, and we did verify that, unlike CDBG funds or HUD funds, there is no restrictions on this money.
Okay.
So
So we need to set up something, Matt, in next week, at least next week.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Matt, thank you for letting me jump in real quick. Item number 2 is review and approve change order number 4 from Lindsay Enterprises for the police garage at additional cost of $3,790.
Reason? Reason for the increase?
Oh, okay. So they, obviously there was a fire and it burned some things up, and they saw what they could see when they ended up digging into the roof. Apparently, they got up into some areas that they couldn't see during the original viewing of the facility, and in order to support the roofing units, it looked like there needed to be some additional steel put in there. So it was just something they couldn't see when they were stuff in the way and they couldn't get up there and see it. They looked the best they could, and so when they dug into it or tore it apart and got it down, they realized they probably probably be a smart idea to put some additional steel in there to support that unit. So that's what it's for.
And is it within the budget, the contingency portion of this budget, or is an additional cost associated with it?
That I don't remember.
Yeah, $3,790, right? Is it, is it part of the 5% contingency or whatever they have with respect to that we put into that project? That would be my question.
I would certainly think it would be. We haven't had much for changes on this project. We had a little bit of extra dirt in this, so we're under $10,000 so I would think it would be, Mayor.
Well, thank you, Matt. Okay, so remove and approve. So any other questions, comments regarding item under finance, review and approve the change order for Valencia Enterprises and the cost of $3,790.
Also move the change order request for that amount of money.
Councilor Bear moves to approve the change order request. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Matt.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Item number 3 is review and approve the request for proposal responses for the audit services for fiscal year 2022, 2023, and 2024. We received one response from Walker Jurenhani.
Is that your recommendation?
They are absolutely fine. We did advertise for 30 days.
So moved. Move to approve by Councilor Freely. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 4 is review and approve the purchase of a 10-horsepower flight pump for the lift station, and we do have Jim Rosfit here to discuss the reason for this request.
Thank you, Jim. You could come up and give us a little synopsis on the review and approval of the purchase of a 10-horsepower FLY GT pump for the lift station.
Morning again.
Once again, morning, Jim.
Yeah, we do have 18 lift stations in the city, 17 that are active. The one we're not using is the one at Rock Ridge. But we did have 2 spare pumps for that. They were new pumps. They were Flight pumps, which is the brand of them. We try to keep a couple spare pumps on hand. We put some new chopper impellers. Well, we went to put some new chopper impellers in the lift station at Fintown because we were having issues with rays and debris and that, as maybe you remember. Those were hydroelectric pumps that were from 1982, 40 years old. Went to replace the impellers in them, to put cutter impellers in them, and the vendor broke one of the casings trying to get them apart because they were so rusted. They did give us a benefit, I think it was 10% off a new pump. But we did use the 2 Flight pumps from the non-existing or the non-working one at Rock Ridge. And the difference, we're trying to get away from hydroelectric, they're old. And we have rail systems that are set up already in all our lifts for Flight pumps, so they slide down on a rail system, and that's how they're put in, but we do need to have a spare. We do have a hydroelectric that been converted over that we took out of that lift station. It's, like I say, it's 1982, but it is a spare, but we should have another pump, a current Flight pump for this.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Councilor Beyondich?
You. And that is within the budget? Is it a budgeted item?
I could not answer that. I assume it would come out of the sewer budget, but, Britt, would you know that?
It is not a current budget item, but it is one of those emergency items that if we don't have one in stock, we are going to be in a whole world of hurt if we don't have a spare pump with us. Because when a lift station goes down, then that causes a lot of flooding and such. We do have money in the budget that would cover this. It just wasn't budgeted.
Okay, so there is money set aside that we could, okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is way cheaper than an emergency repair. We have emergency repair money. This is way cheaper than an emergency repair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. There are 2 items under the quotation. Is it both items that we would be approving, one for $14,397 and one for $15,471 totaling $29,868, or is it one or the other?
No, it's the 10 horse for the 15,000, I believe.
So it's the one that's starred in our packet?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a support? Looking for it. Move to approve by Counselor Freely. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Item number 5 is review the handicap parking request at 322 6th Street South.
Okay, Counselor Johnson.
Mayor, this is another property that is in the middle of the street, which would not conform to the ADA compliances. Also, the letter kind of requests that it be for them, which if we installed a accessible parking spot, there would be no guarantee that this family would be able to utilize it. So I will, as I usually do, make a motion that we'd request staff to send them a letter explaining the legalities of the parking spot and move forward from there. Thank you.
Okay, that's the motion by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Is there support?
I'll support for further discussion.
Okay, support by Counselor Baraboo for further discussion. Do we have some further discussion?
Well, not
Councilor
really, other than the letter needs to be explained very carefully to individuals about what a temporary handicap parking spot would be, because it's only within the winter months, it's every other side, and we can't, so they're still going to have problems with accessibility. Do these people have no off-street parking at all, is what I'm wondering. We don't know that from what I'm reading. It didn't sound like they did, but I can't ascertain that from what I'm reading. Does anybody else know? It doesn't say from either letter. Sounds like they're always street parking. So what do they do in the wintertime? They're going to have to move stuff in the wintertime anyway.
Well, we've received a number of these
I
requests,
know.
right?
That's why I'm saying we need to-
don't, we send them a letter
Yeah,
explaining what the
and I think
process
that's
is.
the appropriate thing to do.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported to do that. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is review the city code, section 1037E, retitled Public Nuisances, Noise Violations, and the request for noise signage.
I put this on the agenda. I asked this be put on the agenda for a reason. We did receive a number of complaints about noise over the months, but this particular one has been a concern of one particular resident for a long period of time. He did send a copy of a picture of a noise ordinance sign. It was requesting that maybe we could place some periodically over town based upon the complaints that we've received with noise. And I know that the police department gets a lot of things about loud mufflers and those kind of things. And I did send to this resident, or had Pam send to this resident, the copy of the city code with all the sections with respect to noise. The police department is well aware of that, and they do patrol, and answer complaints based upon noise of vehicles. But this expands to other things. But this particular concern was for the noisy vehicles, the loud mufflers, and, the faulty equipment and those kind of things that continually, apparently, is a nuisance under our ordinance. So I thought we'd bring this up for us to take a look at, to consider, to determine if signage is available. And again, this is probably something for a street and alley review with our engineer to see, if the signage is appropriate or not moving forward. And I think this would be probably can go coincide with what you're discussing with the park owners as well. But I brought this up for us to take a look at the city code to make the councilors aware and maybe, take some action moving forward to get questions and comments and concerns from the council. So. And we don't have to talk about it now, but I just thought I'd throw that out there for information for determine and discuss. Okay, Nothing else? Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Oh, okay, Counselor Paulson.
Sorry, this is beyond what you just asked, but upon reviewing this ordinance, I found it very interesting, and I'm wondering if we can refer it to our next committee of the whole for continued discussion. There were a couple items in here regarding declaration of nuisances and vehicles parked in yards, and if there's vegetation growing out of them or vermin getting in them or what have you. And we had an individual here, I believe just a week or two ago, asking what blight was and things like that. And I found it very interesting after reviewing these sections that were provided in our, in our packet, that maybe there are some things that we can tighten up a little bit in order to give a little bit more authority to our blight officer. So I don't know if it would be appropriate to move it forward again to the next committee of the whole for review. But part of that, there just may be some language that I'm seeing that we could tighten up in order to help and assist our code officials to be able to enforce blight issues in our community.
Thank you. And it's just to quickly follow up upon that, not to belabor the issue, but, you know, when I read through the entire public nuisance ordinance, not just the noise part of it, and got the information from the city, from the police department, I read through all that thing, public nuisances with respect to storage of vehicles and those kind of things. And Assistant Chief Nickel was providing me with some information about the information that was disseminated, requested by Mr. Soikinen, who came to the council meeting concerned about that camper that's parked in that yard, and we're going to take some action about some of the other things in that yard, but there's no ordinance that prohibits that from happening, and so it's, you know, it's maybe not an eyesore for some residents, but it is for others, and maybe looking at how vehicles are stored and those kind of things in the proper way in which to, without covenants, how we can do that. So I think that that'd be appropriate from my perspective as well, so.
So I would just move then that we, I don't, it's not specific on what section, I know it said 10.37, but public nuisance or anything to do with that.
Storage of the equipment and things like that.
And anything pertaining to blight, if we could bring that forward to the next committee, the whole meeting, I'll make that as a motion. Thank you.
Okay, motion by Councillor Paulson, is there support?
Support.
Support by Councillor Beyondich, is there any further discussion? Councillor Bearable.
Yeah, just one thing, if I remember correctly, going way back here, for vehicles that are stored in yards and stuff, they have to be currently licensed and covered, isn't
That
that?
camper is not, it's just a pickup topper. It's not an actual camper.
Oh, it's
So there's
not
no
a-
license for it.
Oh, okay, so
And they
it's just
actually had a
it's
fire in their backyard in their garage on a vehicle next to their garage, so they couldn't move the car until the insurance
okay.
company was there to finish.
Now I
their-
know the whole background on that one, okay.
Yeah.
So that's a little different situation. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Paulson.
I would just state that it's under the section that I was curious or very interested in is it's inoperable motor vehicles. So maybe tightening up that definition so we can assist, I guess, our officials in our blight quest. So I appreciate you allowing me to do that. Thank you.
Absolutely. See, we have Chief Mattson out there. Anything you'd like to add? Moving. Unlicensed vehicles and equipment. Right, okay, thank you. All right, do we vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 7 is LELS contract negotiations, and this portion of the meeting may be closed as per Minnesota statute 13D03 if the council so chooses.
So you're requesting that this be closed?
I don't know that we need to. The update I have is that the LELS group has approved the contract as we
Okay,
discussed at the last meeting.
Okay, LELS has approved the contract as presented, as we approved. So we approved it, LELS has approved it. Do we need to take any action with respect to that? So looking for council action.
I will move the contract forward as presented and approved.
Council Johnson moves to approve the LELS contract as recommended by us and approved by the bargaining unit. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Mayor, I just wanted to say thank you to those that were on the committee that worked toward this negotiation, and it was a successful negotiation. We received an email, I believe, from,
Jim Gannon.
yes, as to actually what a smooth working group it was. So I just wanted to say thank you and compliment all those involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So it has been moved and supported to approve the contract. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 8 is we have a barrage of requests for the city to act as a fiscal agent for IRRB grants. The first one is AEOA headquarters. They are doing another facility upgrade, including the restroom remodel for the men's room and an office remodel, I believe.
So moved.
Move to approve by Councilor Paulson. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? I just have one item of discussion. So are these requests being presented at this Thursday at the IRRB meeting?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. Acting as a fiscal agent, is the staff time being compensated for?
No, what happened, it's me that does it. I just submit the grant application with the information they give me. I get the grant application or the grant agreement. The mayor and I sign it. I get all the invoices. I submit them to IRRB, and then a check comes to us and we cut a check to them.
So it's
Very
minimal.
minimal staff time.
Okay, thank you.
I do require that all applicants that use us for fiscal agent, I give them the list of what IRRB wants. They give me the information. I submit it what they gave me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Beyondich. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. And the next one is Northeast Technical Services. They're doing an expansion project. They'll be moving into the building next door of them.
Councilor Beyondich?
So moved.
Councilor Beyondich moves to approve. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
And the final one's the Washkey Facility Expansion Project. They're working on an electric vehicle charging upgrade to their facility.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Paulson
Support.
and supported by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 9 is discuss the property offer for parcel at 106 8.5 Street South in the Public Safety Development Area. And this portion of the meeting may be closed as per Minnesota Statute 13D05 Subdivision 3C3.
Yeah, are you requesting that this be for additional discussion, or is it
There is
pretty
nothing
straightforward?
unusual about this purchase. It's a normal
Normal
purchase
purchase?
of our
Okay, thank you.
safety center area.
Also move, Mayor, that we accept the property offer for the parcel at 106 8.5 Street South in Virginia.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Councilor Bearable. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Britt?
Further items for this meeting on the agenda.
Okay, I just have one item to bring up, if I may, and there's going to be an entity coming forward proposing 5 additional charging stations to be placed around the city of Virginia. Referred that company over to Britt for further discussion to bring forward at the council at a further time. So if you hear or see anything, it has been referred to our city staff to do the research and bring back information to us at some future time. So anything else anybody would like to bring up under other items of concern before we adjourn today? Seeing none, we will stand adjourned. It's 10:17 a.m. Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.